Subtitles are total everything.
Ukraine launched a large-scale attack against Moscow during the night of the 4th to the 5th. With many missiles, they struck the refinery for the second time this week, as announced by the mayor of the Russian capital, Sergei Sobyanin. Flames and thick smoke were visible over the southeastern Kapotnya district of Moscow, where the refinery is located, according to a witness who spoke to Reuters. The air defense forces are still repelling a massive attack. Many drones managed to reach the Moscow refinery, wrote Sobyanin on Telegram, adding that in the surrounding area of the capital, a high-rise building, an industrial facility, and some houses were damaged. Sheremetyevo Airport, the busiest in Moscow, suspended flights and evacuated people from its premises, according to its announcement. A little while later, it lifted the restrictions. The refinery in Kapotnya had been targeted again by the Ukrainian attack on Tuesday, a completely fair response to the Russian attacks on our cities and communities, and another important result of our soldiers' work at facilities that support the Russian war machine, said Volodymyr Zelensky, confirming the attack on Telegram. The possibility of a direct military confrontation between NATO and Russia could lead to a rapid and uncontrollable escalation, even to an armed conflict, with incalculable consequences for international security. This is one of the main warnings expressed by the Russian Foreign Minister, Sergei Lavrov, in an article titled Ukraine, Europe, and Global Security, which, according to reports, was supposed to be published by Politico Europe, but its publication was cancelled at the last moment. In his text, the head of Russian diplomacy harshly criticizes European policy towards Moscow, arguing that the experience of recent years has proven that negotiations with Russia are used by European governments as a tactic of deception and not as a sincere effort to find solutions. Lavrov also accuses European countries of portraying Russia as a power with aggressive intentions, believing that such an atmosphere does not allow for meaningful and productive dialogue. In his view, European leaders have set a goal to achieve full operational readiness for a possible conflict with Russia by 2030. While in the meantime, they are trying to buy time through various political and diplomatic moves. According to the Russian minister, European leaders are not really interested in negotiations with Moscow, but are focused on maintaining and strengthening the government of Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky. After the attacks in Moscow, Dmitry Medvedev stated that there are no longer, and cannot be, any rules regarding the Kyiv regime. This statement by the Vice President of the Security Council of Russia was made on Saturday, June 20, 2026, through the social media platform Max, as a direct response to Ukraine's massive and intensified attacks with drones and missiles deep within Russian territory and on Russian cities. The former president of Russia claimed that due to the frequency and nature of the Ukrainian strikes, Moscow is no longer bound by any restriction or international rule regarding how to deal with the Kyiv regime. While just a little while ago, Kharkiv was struck by the Russians, Medvedev specifically stated that the Hague Conventions on the Laws and Customs of War are no longer necessary for the Russian side at this stage. According to him, the only exception and red line that Moscow maintains in its military actions is avoiding deliberate harm to civilians. This statement comes at a time of intense escalation, as Kyiv has intensified strikes on military infrastructure and supply lines inside Russia. At the same time, Medvedev has adopted a consistently hardline rhetoric, warning in recent days that European countries' support for Ukraine makes them direct participants in the conflict. In a dramatic and highly aggressive intervention, the well-known Russian ultranationalist ideologue Alexander Dugin spoke out, prompted by the mass attacks by unmanned aircraft that struck Moscow. Dugin is sounding the alarm for the very survival of the country, directly linking the military strikes from the external enemy to the systematic undermining faced by the Kremlin from a powerful internal network of betrayal, which he himself calls the Sixth Column. According to his analysis, the war will not be won, and the attacks on the Russian capital will escalate if Moscow does not radically change the way it conducts operations, and, above all, if it does not eliminate its domestic enemies. Dugin points out that if one were to draw a diagram of the people who have already been identified as traitors, one would be horrified to find that many of them held top administrative positions and were at the center of developments. According to him, this proves that the entire state and social environment in which they were raised and thrived is deeply contaminated and compromised. The Kremlin ideologue makes indirect but clear criticism of the Russian leadership's handling, accusing it of indecisiveness. As he mentions, Russia takes half a step forward in the face of the internal threat, and then hesitates, freezing, a behavior that betrays a deep political illness. Dugin's conclusion is absolute. Russia must find the courage to admit this internal pathology and immediately begin an aggressive treatment or cleansing, as neither the external nor the internal enemy intends to surrender. Multiple explosions occurred overnight across the entire Russian-occupied Crimean peninsula as part of an apparent drone attack. Local residents reported explosions and the operation of air defense systems in Kerch, Bakhchisarai, Sevastopol, and Simferopol, as well as in the areas of Nizhnokurske, Krasnovardiiske, and Krasnoperekopsk. After reports of aerial activity, the Russian authorities temporarily suspended traffic on the Kerch Bridge. Independent monitoring groups that analyzed satellite images reported several fires at fuel and logistics facilities in the area. In Kerch, satellite data showed an active fire at the maritime commercial port. Thermal indications were mainly detected at the Aagis terminal facilities, a specialized complex for handling and transporting liquefied gas. About 600 meters west of the gas facility, additional fires were recorded at a fuel terminal belonging to the company TESS.
Thank you for watching. To be the first to receive all the latest updates, please like and subscribe to our channel.